Everybody keeps talking about single origin and blends, but it's important to understand that much better. What is a blend? Why do we do it? How complex is it? What is the skill involved in that? And the decision points for making a particular blend. That is what we're talking about. Now, blending is a really masterful skill in an art. It is not something which is you've got 5 coffees, you'll just mix and match together. That is not how it happens. Blending should start right from the day you've decided to work on a coffee or tasted a coffee. I know a few companies who blend like 7, 8 coffees together. I know a company who does 16 coffees together as a blend. And then we've got few companies who just does 2 coffees together. So the number of components in a blend does not determine if it is great or bad. Now let me make it much easier. There are espresso blends, there are filter blends, there are cold brew blends. Now, when you're tasting a lot of coffees, you need to make up your mind and understand, and that takes a lot of practice. It's not something that comes just like that. That takes a lot of practice because you got to taste a lot of coffees to understand which coffee is going to work well with what kind, cold brew, filter or espresso. That is where Q grading comes really helpful, because you've tasted so many coffees, you've understood the entire flavor profile of different coffees, that you can figure out which coffee is good and which coffee can balance out the okayish level of the other coffee. You know what I mean? Like, let's say I've tasted like 50 samples on the table, and I get to know after a point of time, okay, this is good by itself. Then probably I move to the 30th sample and I say, okay, this is not somewhere which is great, but you know what? There was a 7th sample which, if blended together, it will compensate and it will come out really good, you know? So that's why you gotta keep tasting, and blending is not something which can be decided by the kind of coffee that is available with you. I mean, I don't want to say cannot, should not. At times it works. What I'm trying to say is that if you're trying to make a blend with the coffees that are existing with you and just to come up with a blend, that may or may not work, all right? But that's not a great approach. A better approach is, when you're tasting a lot of coffees, remember which coffee do you want to make a blend of, and then make an order as a roaster accordingly. Why do we blend? I think, why do we blend? First and foremost, it should not be blended if you want to bring 2 average coffees together and see if a good product comes out. In fact, the approach should be that this coffee is great, it has got great flavor, but the body is a little bit not there. And this coffee, another coffee, has got great body, great flavor, so why don't we mix and match together? So that should be the approach while making a blend. And it's a long journey. It's a very, very long journey to come out with a particular blend. That is what a blend is. Blending coffees is really tricky. There are a lot of people who charge really high to make a blend, to each their own. I know a couple of people who have charged 3.5 CR for a blend.
What?
Now, see, single origin is, as the name suggests, that it is from one particular estate, all right? It's from one particular origin. Now, here is the confusion that happens at a lot of times. A lot of people say that a single origin, so India is a single origin, but it's coming from different estates together. So is it a single origin? Exactly. The reason I'm mentioning this is, there are a lot of companies who does single origin Kenyan coffee, single origin Indian coffee. And if that Indian coffee has got 4 or 5 estates together, it's not a single origin. So it's very important to know that India in itself is huge and there are a lot of coffee growing estates. Kenya in itself is different, all right? So single origin in itself means that the origin is from the single estate. It's of the same process. It's of the same varietal. That is what single origin really means. Let's dig a little deeper into blending. Blending is done either pre-roasting or post-roasting. There are 2 kinds of blending. Pre-roasting is basically, in the green batch in itself, you've taken 50% of A coffee, 20% of B coffee, 30% of C coffee, made a batch of green beans, all right, unroasted, and then that you put in the roaster, and then you create a particular profile and then get it out. That's your blend. So that is pre-blending. Post-blending is basically I've roasted A coffee, which is a 50% component of the blend, B coffee, which is the 20% I guess component of the blend, separately. 30% of the component जो है वो I've roasted. So all three coffees have been roasted separately, and post roasting I have blended them in one particular ratio for a kg of a coffee or kg of a batch. So that is post blending. These are the two kinds of blending. I personally prefer post blending hands down. So why would you not want to do a pre blending? The simple answer is that each coffee, there are three coffees, all right? You're blending these three coffees which are different, that's why it's a blend, right? Now this coffee will have a different moisture, different altitude, different characteristics altogether. The density is different, everything is different from this and this, all right? Now if you're roasting all three in just one profile, you may extract the best out of one. You may, in all probability, you may not be able to extract the best out of the other two, because while you're roasting, you need to know what are the moisture and altitude numbers and all these things you need to know to get the best out of the coffee. Like how much Maillard reaction should I stretch, how much drying phase should be there, how much first crack development time ratio and all those things should be there. It's a little complicated, but that's all right. Just understand one thing, that each coffee has a different language of roasting or profiling, and that's why pre-blending is not something that would work out, because you're not by any means getting the best out of all three. All right, in post-blending, what am I doing is I am roasting each coffee keeping in mind the altitude, density, and all these things together, creating a certain profile to extract that coffee particularly. Doing the second one, doing the B coffee, same manner, in the same manner, designing a profile, designing a entire graph and everything all together, extracting the or making, maybe just finding out the best out of the B coffee, and the same thing for the C coffee, and then I'm blending them together. So that is how post blending makes a lot of sense. Pre blending is very, very, very chancy, I would say. I want to put it that way. Less chances of it working out. It's coffee, you never know it will work out. So what is occurring around in a blend is, let's say you got a 80 of A coffee and 20 of B coffee, and when you're extracting, let's say you blended it and you're extracting an espresso out of it, the first thing that will come out are the acids of the 80% coffee and the 20% coffee also. These are going to be different, tasting different, right? If you brew these coffees differently and if you taste the espresso, it's going to be tasting pretty much different, right? So that is what you want to try. You want to bring that together and find out a good balance. So that is what is happening. Your acids are getting extracted, your chocolatey, nutty notes are getting extracted in a different form, and then your bitters are also getting extracted. So it is just finding out a great combination, a great set of combination to extract the best out of those two coffees blended together. Now, I'll tell you a small little challenge over here. Whenever you blend, let's say a kg of coffee you blended 80 and 20, all right, and you're using 15 grams of coffee for a pour over, all right. Do you think that 15 grams is exactly 80 and 20? It's not. So initially what we used to do was we used to make doses of 11, 11, 11, 11, 11 and then 4, 4, 4. Those doses used to be used. It was not blended together. So that is exactly how you use a blend. You know, that is how you do the blend. And even in the championships, that is how it happens. You can't, I mean, that is how you should. Because when you, let's say, you blended 80 and 20, and let's say the 20 decides to bloody be on the top itself. And the 80 is not a blend, it's just a single origin that you're coming. Yeah. So guys, the next video is going to be about blending again. And it's going to be about how I approach a blend and how do I create a blend. I am really happy to share that. Trust me, you won't find many people sharing this across because it's kind of a secret. But there's no secret. It's only the skill that a person has. So I trust my palate, I trust my skills, so I can share the entire know-how about that. There's no harm in that at all. So yeah, I'm sure you're gonna love that video. And yeah, and we're gonna do a very fun exercise with that. So keep in the loop, man. Cheers.